Okay, roll call, please.
Ms. Checkeye? Here. Dr. Lee?
Here.
Mr. Malkin?
Here.
Mr. Mislinski?
Here.
Mr. Pallid?
Here.
Mr. Schwartzmeyer?
Here.
Ms. Delhi? Here. Mayor O'Keefe?
Here. Okay, welcome everyone to our regular meeting, November 20th, 2024, Borough of Franklin Park regular council meeting. There are no preliminary matters, public comments. Residents and taxpayers of the borough are permitted to comment on current matters of concern or agenda items which are before council this evening. If you'd like to address the borough council this evening, we ask that you please stand at the microphone, give your name, spell your last name, give your address so you'll be properly identified for the minute record. Each speaker will be limited to 5 minutes. As alternative, written comments can be submitted to public comments at franklinparkborough.us prior to 12 noon Eastern Time on Wednesday, November 20th, 2024, in order to be considered at this meeting. Please include November 20th public comment as a subject of your email and include your name and address so you are properly identified for the minute record. Were there any emails?
There were none.
Okay. The public hearing. Okay, so hold on. Okay. Monthly reports. The minutes of the October 16, 2024 pre-post meeting, October 16, 2024 regular meeting, and the November 6, 2024 work session minutes were given to the mayor and council. Are there any additions or corrections? Seeing as there are none, motion number 1.
Move the minutes of the October 16th, 2024 pre-post meeting and the October 16th, 2024 regular meeting and the November 6th, 2024 work session minutes be approved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Treasurer's financial report.
Thank you, Mr. President. For the month of October, our Franklin Park Police, is it my turn or am I jumping in? I thought so.
Sorry, financial report.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was late, Mr. Mayor. Sorry about that. Getting used to the microphone. Thank you. Starting with the revenue, general fund revenues for the month of October total $310,827. That represents 2.5% of the 2024 total budget. Year-to-date revenues through October, $8,473,971. That represents roughly 70% of the 2024 total budget year-to-date. On the expenditure side, general fund expenditures for the month of October totaled $917,207. That represents 6% of the 24 budget. The expenditures year-to-date through October totaled $8,004,572, which represents 52.33% of the total 24 year-to-date budget. That is the end of the report, Mr. President.
I move the October Treasurer's Financial Report be accepted as read.
Second.
Any discussion? All those for?
Aye.
Against? Abstain? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. President. For the month of October, our Franklin Park Police had 535 calls for service, resulting in 10 arrests, 1 DUI, 3 disorderly conduct, 1 fraud, 1 retail theft, 1 theft, 1 criminal trespass, 1 simple assault, and 1 warrant. 99 citations and 309 warnings were issued. There was no special response detail. On October 31st, Franklin Park Police had additional officers out patrolling for trick-or-treat safety. Officers passed out nearly 900 treat bags made up of candy and glow sticks provided by District Attorney Steven Sapella. That completes the police report, Mr. President.
Recommend the police report be filed with the police secretary.
Fire report.
Thank you, Mr. President. For the month of October, the fire company responded to 31 calls, including 11 dispatched and canceled en route, 6 vehicle accidents, 6 alarm system activations, 2 storm damage assessment and cleanup, 1 cooking fire, 1 assist police, 1 power line down, 1 electrical wiring, 1 smoke scare, 1 natural vegetation fire, which were outside Halloween decorations, The fire company assisted other fire companies 5 times, and we were assisted by other fire companies 5 times as well. Year to date, we've responded to 245 fire calls. For the month of October, the company expended 470 volunteer man-hours, and for the last 12 months, the company has expended 6,313 volunteer man-hours. End of report, Mr. President.
Okay. Building inspector's report.
Yes, Mr. President. Construction report for October 2024. 28 permits were issued for the month. 2 additions, 3 remodels, 5 decks, 2 fences, 2 swimming pools, 1 shed, 4 commercial occupancies, 1 demolition permit, and 8 miscellaneous permits. Total value of construction for month was $2,292,860. Total fees collected for the month were $15,496. End of report, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you. Announcement of executive session. Borough Council held an executive session on October 16, 2024 to discuss potential property acquisition, and Borough Council held an executive session on November 6 to discuss police personnel and a potential property acquisition, and earlier this evening, November 20th, to discuss police personnel. Old business, none. Moving on to new business.
Move council authorize the payment of the bills which have been reviewed and approved since the last meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Let's see, public hearing, conditional use application CU 24-09-03, Matthew R. Marcelini, sorry if I'm saying it wrong, 2340 McAleer Road. And give me the other one. Okay, and also combined with public hearing for conditional use application CU 24-10-04, also same resident, same address.
Okay, we're on the record now after reading those 2 introductions. This is the time, place, and date for 2 public hearings with respect to 2 conditional use applications submitted by Matthew Marcinelli for a property located at 2340 McAleer Road in the R2 zoning district. Assessment records show that the property is 2.86 acres, is currently developed with a single-family dwelling and a detached garage. The first application is to obtain approval for a ground-mounted solar panel array consisting of 18 solar PV modules that measure 41 inches by 74 inches, each covering 360 square feet of ground for residential use. That is application CU 24-09-03. The second application is to obtain approval for a storage shed with 1,550 square feet of gross floor area, and that is application CU 24-10-03. We are going to attempt to have a combined public hearing rather than opening and closing the first and moving on to the second. So if you'll bear with me, our process is to introduce a number of preliminary exhibits into the record. Then we see if anybody is seeking party status to object to either application. Then we will hear from the applicant, and if there are any objectors, we will then hear from any objectors before council makes a decision tonight to either approve, deny, or table both applications. Starting first with the solar application, I have Borough Exhibit A, which is the application received August 27th, 2024. Borough Exhibit B is the additional application materials provided September 24th, 2024. Borough Exhibit C is the text of Section 212-404, Table 4.7, allowing solar use as a conditional use in the R2 district. Borough D is the text of Section 212-1907H on accessory use regulations for solar. Borough Exhibit E is the text of Section 212-1803, the general conditional use criteria. Borough Exhibit F is the public hearing proof of publication from October 31st, 2024 and November 7th, 2024. Borough Exhibit G is a picture of the posting. Borough Exhibit H is the letters to the neighboring property owners and notice to the applicant for tonight's public hearing. Borough Exhibit I is the staff report from Mr. Phillips dated October 11th, 2024. Borough Exhibit J is the October 15th, 2024 Planning Commission meeting minutes with their recommendation. Borough Exhibit K is the written consent to an extension of time to commence the public hearing. Those are the preliminary exhibits for the solar application. For the shed application, Borough Exhibit A is the application received September 18th, 2024. Borough Exhibit B is the section on accessory structure regulations from the zoning ordinance. Borough Exhibit C are the general conditional use criteria. Borough Exhibit D are the public hearing proof of publication from October 31st, 2024 and November 7th. Borough Exhibit E is a picture of the posting. Borough Exhibit F are the notice of the neighboring property owners and the applicant for tonight's public hearing. Borough Exhibit G is Mr. Phillips' staff report dated October 11th, 2024. Borough Exhibit H are the October 15th, 2024 Planning Commission meeting minutes with their recommendation. And Borough Exhibit I is the written consent to an extension of time to commence tonight's public hearing. Okay, at this time, anybody that may be testifying in this matter will be sworn in by their court reporter. That includes the applicant and any objectors as well as Mr. Phillips. Please stand and raise your right hand. Okay. Thank you. Before we hear from the applicant, is there anyone here? We do have somebody who signed up that is appearing either in support or opposition to the applications. Can you please come to the front? Sorry, are you?
Hello, I am the applicant.
So I have Ken Richards.
Can you please stand up and just introduce yourself, Mr. Richards? Yep.
Attempting to put a building in the front of my property, which I'm opposing.
And you received a copy of the notice for tonight's hearing?
I did not receive a copy.
Did not receive a copy of
Yeah.
any
Just
letters?
all I saw was the sign behind the post, the telephone pole. There were two signs behind a telephone pole.
Okay. Okay, so.
I'm sorry.
You're an immediate adjacent neighbor from your testimony?
Yes, Mr. Mercenelli's side property is adjacent to my front property. His front door faces my front door, yet the front of his house is not
Okay.
the same.
And we'll hear your proposition as we get to that point. We're just trying to establish who's a party to this proceeding, who can provide testimony. You've been sworn in and can have standing to participate, receive a copy of the written decision, and be involved in any appeal litigation down at the Court of Common Pleas. Are you seeking party status for tonight's public hearing? We'll have standing. We'll get to your presentation after we hear from the applicant. At this time, the floor is open to the applicant. As I mentioned, we're trying to do these as a combined public hearing. We'll need to hold on to that. I think we can. We might not have issues online, people hearing you. So unfortunately, we do ask you to do that.
Gotcha.
Oh, they got shut off. Borough Council does have copies of the application and all the reports, but this is your opportunity to explain both the solar proposal and the shed proposal. And before you do so, I will ask Mr. Phillips just to give his brief verbal report with respect to the completeness of this application and if any of the specific requirements for conditional use for both a solar array and a shed have been met, or have they needed zoning hearing board variances?
Everything that has been submitted is in concert with our ordinances. It went through the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission recommended on both applications that they be approved as moved to council.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. All right. Applicant, floor is yours.
I'm going to speak extemporaneously here. I didn't prepare a formal presentation. I wasn't really sure what to expect tonight. So good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Matt Marcinelli. I live right over the hill, actually, at 2340 McAleer Road. My wife and I bought the property at the end of 2015, and our goal was to work on improving the property. It was an old home. It was built in 1956. It was about 1,500 square feet, and we completely renovated it. With that home came an adjacent detached garage, and it's about 60 years old. And eventually, we've been trying to improve the property in phases, and we reached the point where we were ready to address the dilapidated detached building, which has been used as the shed up until this point. It's got our lawn gear in it, storage. It's got an upstairs that we use for, it's got a ping pong table, wrestling mat, things like that. So we presented the proposed building that we need to construct in order to take the place of the detached garage, the garage where it is right now. It's got some leaks in it. So I put the plan forward to the borough. The building is going to match the new home that we've renovated over the last 8 years. And so I think it's going to be a significant upgrade to the value of the property, along with an upgrade to aesthetics for the neighborhood. We share a single driveway with 3 homes. Mr. Cochran owns one home, and Mr. Ken owns the other one up on the hill. As I understand it, Ken's not happy about having to look at a building, and I just didn't try to communicate with him. I don't understand the problem. He's been looking at this old building that doesn't match the home, and I think, as I said, I think he'll be very pleased with the building. You have to look at the old detached garage every time you leave the property. So eventually we want to renovate that as well, because it just needs repair. I think I should have started with the solar array, I guess. Today we had a power outage, and I'm in search of a vehicle to have continuous energy during these types of outages that we've had over the last couple of weeks. I've had a couple, got freezers, and and I don't want to have any extended outages. So I decided, I've got almost 3 acres, and we originally were going to put the array where the solar company instructed us as would be the primary spot. After speaking with Mr. Richards and my other neighbor, they showed some displeasure with the array and the positioning on our property where the array was going to be. So I was empathetic to that, and I hesitated installing it or even applying for it until I put some thought into it. And so the solar company came back, and they basically identified a fallback plan for me. It's not quite the optimal position on my property to take advantage of this, solar as the first one was. But again, I wanted to be empathetic to Mr. Richards' needs and Mr. Cochran's desires, actually. So I put it in the back of my property at a place that you can't really, I can't see their properties and they can't see mine. And my one neighbor, Mr. Cochran, agreed. He said, that's fine. We can't, it won't, it's in behind your property, and it's right below the military crest of our hill for the next property. So it's in a good spot. And I think that's pretty much it. Do any of you have any questions? Is there any blank spaces I need to fill in?
I think it's a good focus on the solar array. Might talk a little bit more about the shed, but I guess Mr. Phillips, with respect to solar arrays, we do have some requirements, and you do have a staff report that talks about underground utility lines or so, but are there any other comments you have for council in considering this application?
No, I think the solar array is in a good location. It's pretty far from any other properties, and I think it's going to work fine. We did condition it that that it meets code, and the service lines are underground. So I think it's all good.
Is there any movement planned for these? Do they face the sun? Or
The system I have, I don't think, it's not going to like rotate. It's a static array, ground mounted system. And again, I made sure, especially for Mr. Richards, I went up into the back of my yard and I sent pictures. I showed it to the zoning board that we talked to, and they agreed you can't see his home from, there's about 7 or 8 giant evergreen trees that separate his property from, they're on his property, but it blocks his home from the array. And the same can be said, frankly, about the detached building. It's over in the back corner of my property. And again, I think he'll be very pleased with the final product.
there's some mention, at least in the planning commission discussion and their meeting minutes, about potentially other screening maybe being needed, and were you committing?
I agreed. I'm, I just had a survey done on the property, and I had the company come back out again. It cost me more money. I wanted to placate my neighbor and let him know where the property line was, and I do intend to put. I just actually inquired today about it. It's a type of bush. It's a tree, 5-6 feet. My intention is to put that along the border, and again, it'll be aesthetically pleasing, and it'll actually be a nice clear line of delineation between our properties.
Okay, thank you. We'll start down with Mr. Schwartzmeyer and move through council members. Any specific questions on the solar array?
I do not. I actually attended one of the planning commission meetings where it was presented, and I did meet with I didn't meet with, but I listened to the presentation from the solar panel vendor that Mr. Marcinell is using. So I think it was pretty clear between what I heard there and what I've seen on the plans that we were sent. It seemed like it's going to be positioned way up in there, and obviously it's got to face the south, I guess, to get the sunlight. So it's going to be on an angle heading towards the south side of your property. But that all makes sense to me, and I don't think it's. What are the dimensions of the total? I can't quite read them in
I think
here.
it's. I don't have the plans in front of me. It's like 20 by 15. It's the size of a. It's
Oh,
not a
I'm
very
sorry.
big. It's not a very big.
I blew it up. I can 370 inches by 135 inches. So that would be like 11 feet by 20 feet, something
Okay.
like that.
Yeah, I said 15 by 20. It's less. Yeah, something like that.
No, I think it's pretty.
Like this.
Yeah,
Maybe smaller than this area up here.
yeah. I think it's pretty clear from what I've seen in the plans and heard at that meeting.
And the panels are non-reflective. They're not like the old solar panels that you remember that were gridded out. It's got this. It's a non-reflective, because that was a concern, and I wanted to be amenable to the neighbors. I didn't want to have any reflective, any reflective result where they would be hindered by that. So that's it. Yep. And by the way, that border, I just pulled that. I'm going to install. They're called Thuja Green Giant Arbor Vitae. They're the big evergreens. People use them for decorative barriers.
No further questions on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Lee?
Any question?
Ms. Linsky?
Yeah, Mr. Marcinelli, just to confirm the pictures in the application that you submitted, that's the current location that you're looking at behind the house.
Yes, sir.
Not
Oh,
the
for the
location.
array. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
And just, yes, that's correct.
Mr. Pallad?
I don't have any questions. I sit on the planning commission, so I've
Right.
I've been able to see this extensively. Thanks.
Mr. Malkin?
I have no questions.
Ms. Chekai?
No questions.
Mayor Keefe?
I'm good. No questions.
Okay, thank you. We can now move a little bit more detail about the storage shed that has been proposed. And I think, council, in your meeting packet, you have some drawings showing the approximate location, but also the style and the separation. And just for my clarification, I mean, this is not replacing a detached garage that's already on the property. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, it's a shed. it's going to store my lawn equipment, and I've got a little tiny RV that I wanted, if it's long enough, or it's short enough, I could put it in there during the winter if I wanted to, instead of having to, currently store it up at Wampum underground storage, and you guys are all familiar with that, the salt mines up there, so I'll be able to keep it on my property.
And Mr. Phillips, I mean, we have a requirement for accessory uses that you can't have two of the same accessory use, so two swimming pools, two gazebos, two sheds, actually, but is there a distinction or differentiation between the two detached accessory structures for this application?
Well, to the best of my knowledge, the existing accessory structure is is a detached garage, and this is a proposed shed. The other thing on this shed, as everybody needs to realize, is that the square footage this footprint is under 1,000 square feet. So this is going to have a basement to it. And that's where the square footage, the gross square floor area comes from. So it won't be an obtrusive large building.
Well, that was the other thing. I wanted to also be empathetic to my neighbors, and I wanted to keep the footprint down. So at my own expense, I'm putting in a lower subterranean level to it so that I can have more space, but it's not a large footprint that is going to be on the property. Again, I've made every effort to accommodate my neighbors, and I'm spending a lot more money on this building than I otherwise intended to, because I want it to blend in with my home, unlike the current detached garage that's there. It's got a gambler roof. Is that what it's called, Tim? This is going to match the main home exactly. And everything to the same products on the roof, soffit and fascia, everything's going to be exact to the main home. So again, it's going to increase the value of not just my property, but my neighbors' properties as well.
And Mr. Phillips, just on that point, we did change the ordinance several years ago to address gross floor area and not just the building footprint. So if, is this, that the footprint, if there was no basement and no additional square footage, would this even go through a conditional use process?
No, I would just issue a building permit a zoning permit, actually, and it would meet the requirement. There wouldn't be any public hearing process or anything like that, and there would not be any screening necessary either.
And there is an exhibit in here showing setbacks, I know for the solar as well, but are there any setback issues with the proposed accessory shed?
No, there's not.
And how about the
Not
height?
as proposed.
And the height?
No, that's why the basement's being put in, because the second floor couldn't be.
Ah. And details. Okay. Starting again, we'll go the other way. Let's see. Mayor O'Keefe, any questions about the accessory shed application? Thank you. Mr. Chekai? Mr. Malkin?
Same.
Mr. Palad?
Same.
Ms. Linsky?
I'm just trying to figure out exactly, it's going to go in the northwest corner, Mr. Marcinelli? Is that basically where it is?
Yes.
And it's pretty covered by trees up there too, yeah.
I've got my whole back borders trees, and I don't have a border. There's not a physical barrier between my property and Mr. Richards, but I'm going to start planting the large, or like a pine tree,
Thank you.
they were recommended to me because deer don't eat them and bugs. I mean, it's a type of bush that is recommended by the arborist to put in there.
Any other questions? No? Dr. Lee?
No, I'm just looking at the plan now and the elevations that were given to us, and I think it's a pretty clean looking design. Questions on that?
Thank you. All right. Thank you for the presentation. We do have the application as well as those exhibits, but we will now hear from Mr. Richards.
Thank you, folks. Appreciate it.
Richard, the floor is yours to speak about both or either of the applications, whatever order you prefer.
Mr. Marcinelli, is this building where you currently have marked out with stakes on the back corner of your property, is that where you're proposing to put it? Okay. Is it going to be angled, or is the back going to face my front property? Okay. Okay. I have a series of questions. I don't think I can begin to know how to ask them. Are you going to be putting a driveway in there to this building? Okay, well, it's 1,500 square feet, which is the same size as my house. My house is 1,680 feet. He's proposing to put a building as big as my house in front of my property. His side property is adjacent to my front property. It's been explained to me that the front of his house is not actually the front of his house, that it's actually the side of his house. The side that faces the street becomes the front, which clears up confusion with me and his solar panels, because I was under the premise that the front of your house with the front door and the garage, which now I understand I don't have an opposition to the solar panels, because when it was the back of the house, 90 feet from what I thought was the back is actually Mr. Sutterford's property. That would have put these solar panels behind the current barn, which is a barn. It's an old McDonald Fisher Price barn with a 2-car bay, and it's 2 stories and it's quite high. Will there be water and electricity in this building? Water and electricity. Okay, so my question is, if you're going to have water and electricity, who's going to stop somebody from moving in there and making that a home? At what point, looking at the drawings, he has a garage door, a front door, and a window? Well, that to me looks like a house. If you're going to have water and electricity, 1,500 square feet, that's the size of my house. That's much bigger.
So we've had that issue before, in other properties, and we do have restrictions on, a single-family residence being a single-family residence. You can only have one principal use, on the property, and Mr. Phillips has done enforcement actions, through that, which we don't like to go through, but by and large, and we do have other facilities that have water or sewage, but have not been, rented out or become a secondary.
What if his mother-in-law moves in? She's family. There's no rent. This is my concern. I'm just trying to voice every concern I have.
If his mother-in-law moved in, they would have to meet certain requirements, and it would have to be able to be subdivided in the future. And additionally, it would come through a process similar to this, because mother-in-law's quarters, servants' quarters, guest houses are permitted on residential properties with principal uses.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips.
Now, also, if we're allowed to have one accessory building, my question is, why is he getting 2? Even though you're calling this a shed, his barn is well over 1,500 square feet. It's 2 stories. It's 2 full stories. It's a large structure. If we're only allowed to have one accessory structure, why is Mr. Marcinelli getting 2? And if he is allowed to have 2, is there going to be a time limit placed when his decrepit barn gets torn down and or rebuilt, or torn down and left down? This is where I kind of see the unfairness. The barn was there after I was born. I've lived in that house. It's been my family home for over 60 years. So I grew up there. I actually put nails in his barn as a young kid. It's built very well, but I'm afraid, and forgive the description. We live in Franklin Park. This is an upwardly mobile area. Okay, Mr. Cochran's house is well over $1 million. Mr. Marcinelli's house is close, I'm sure, to $1 million. I'm the poor kid in the block. Mine's only worth $500,000. But what's going to stop this from looking like Green Acres? If he's going to have this shed, which could potentially be a mother-in-law suite with running water and electricity down the line, whoever may build it, whether Matt would move or whoever built it, then we have the old McDonald barn. And what my concern is, at the commission meeting last month, he was asked, after you build this shed, are you going to replace the barn? And his comment was, well, one day. What's going to stop him from building Green Acres? Because we don't live in Hooterville. Okay, I don't want multiple buildings on this, on the property. If we're allowed to have one, I understand that. But, and the other thing that bothers me is where he wants to place this building at, it's right adjacent on the front of my property. So when I wake up in the morning and look out my kitchen window, I'm going to have to look at the back of this building or the back side of this building. What's going to stop him from putting ladders and firewood and trailers and, stuff like that? Because that affects the front of my property. So I know you do.
Okay, there's not a question pending. We're trying to keep this on the record. Please continue.
My point is, he's putting a building on the property line. It could be, he has 2.6 acres. He could slide that building closer to his house. Why does it have to be on my property line? I understand I don't have a choice. It's not my property. But I'm saying I have almost 3 acres too. And now I have to look in the corner of this property with a building in the middle of nowhere. It's 500 feet from his house. I don't want my shed that far, away, but it just seems like it's so far away from the house. Forgive me, it's like a zit on the property. It's just, I don't care how pretty it is. I don't care how you dress it up. There's this big, beautiful field, and it's just and it's not like it's back in the woods or tucked in where it's gonna be sticking out on an angle facing his home. So that's another concern I have. That's basically it. What's going to stop somebody from putting garbage in the back of their building, as many people do, that's going to face the front of my property? That's my concern, because it is the front of my property. It's not like there's a road there and we have a street and, it's a big field.
All right, sir. Yeah,
That's
we'll
not
give
the
you
point.
one chance to give a closing statement, but
That's not my point. It's what if. You move and somebody else moves in, what if? You move and, they bring their mother-in-law, what if? We have 3 houses on one driveway. That's the way it has to be. You don't have the frontage of your house to put an additional driveway in. And I'm landlocked. So this is my concern. And the trees that you say block my view are on the side of my house. So when I look out my kitchen window, I see the front of your house. I have to look at this. I look at your shed. I look at your barn. I look at your trailer. I look at your cars. I look at your log pile. And for my resale, I just don't. If Mr. Marcinelli could take this building and put it down 100 feet, because the valley goes this way, he wants it up here. If it could be slid down closer to his house, tucked back in the woods, because there is a recess in the property in the trees that it could be tucked very nicely back in there. And it wouldn't be so intrusive. This just kind of sticks out and it's like, well, where'd this building come from? It doesn't match what, the neighborhood is. And as I said, the big barn, is it going to be replaced or is he going to have to tear it down permanently? And is that going to match? But why does he get 2 and everybody else gets 1? So I won't repeat myself. That's my nerves. I'm sorry.
no, thank you. I mean, that's why we have a public hearing process, that these aren't just approved over the counter to hear all views. I guess in terms of the detached and accessory residential structure, Mr. Richards, have you reviewed the ordinance? Are there any provisions in there that you don't believe this application meets?
I have not seen them, nor have I looked.
And in terms of the question that I posed as well, it's not that you can only have one accessory, building or structure on your property. You can only have one of certain kinds of accessory structures and buildings. It's limited to, that. You could have buildings as long as they're serving, different purposes, I think.
Well, when I grew up, a shed didn't have running water, electricity, a garage door, a front door, and a living room window door. My shed came from Home Depot, or better yet, Busy Beaver. So,
Thank you, Mr. Richards. We will turn the floor back over to Mr. Snell for any final comments you have before we announce our next steps.
Look, number one, I want to have a good relationship with Ken. We've been friendly the whole time. I mean, Ken has given me amazing compliments with what a great dad I am. My boys are amazing, and we had a very cordial relationship. Whenever we had no issues until I proposed the idea that I was going to put an array in there. I've bent over backwards. I've even asked Mr. Richards if he wanted me to purchase part of his property so that he could put some liquidity into the existing home. He's got a very old home. He's done nothing to improve it. It's dilapidated, and there's been no improvement since it was built. I'm the one trying to improve my property. I've also wanted to move my gas line because we both share a gas line that's on my front yard. And I even offered Mr. Richards, I'd pay for both of us to have it moved, and I'd pay for his as well. I just want y'all to know, I mean, if you came by my property, Ken's never complained to me about not upkeeping my property. I don't complain. I've never said one thing to him about his property, like, hey, when are you going to start renovating your house? But I told him I've made huge efforts to be cordial, be friendly, and I'd like to have a friendly relationship with him. But this building, he just, for some reason, he got really upset over it. And like I said, he's been looking at this old dilapidated barn that he even admitted that he's known since he was a little boy. Doesn't match the house. It's ugly. And I'm trying to improve. I'm trying to improve the property. So I think he'll be pleased. I know he will be. So we just have to get through this phase and hopefully we'll have a good relationship after this. So thanks.
Thank you, and yes, I do encourage, I mean, these types of proceedings, can be contentious, but you are neighbors, you will have to live with each other. This approval does run with the land, so if you do sell the property, to Mr. Richards' concern, I mean, it does continue on. Somebody doesn't have to tear down the building. They have to abide by the terms of the conditions that are imposed through this process, but that is a legitimate concern with respect to, future owners and future activity. In this case, right. There we go. Well, we got it on the record now. So we will need to issue written findings of facts and conclusions of law because it has been contested. However, if council is ready tonight, our options are, as with any other conditional use application, we can read the motions as written. They're in the positive sense for an approval. If the motions fail, they are denied. You also have the option to table. We would close the public hearing because we don't have any further exhibits or testimony. But if we close the public hearing, we would have 45 days in which to vote. That would put us to the December agenda, and the motion would need to be made at that point for one or both of these. We can split them up as we have, understanding there hasn't been objections to the solar array. It is the accessory structure. The other item I'll say, although we do issue findings of facts, conclusions of law, typically after a motion is made and if it is approved or denied, we will issue a letter the next day indicating the result of the vote. That is what triggers the requirements to appeal 30 days from that to the Court of Common Pleas, and not wait until the findings of facts are drafted after we have the transcript ready and are able to put those together to document the reasons behind an approval. So with that, I will sort of open the floor to members of council as to what you care to do for motions 4 and motions 5.
On motion 4, I move to approve conditional use application CU 24-09-03 submitted by Matthew R. Marcinelli for conditional use approval to allow ground-mounted solar array to be located on the property located at 2340 McAleer Road in the R2 zoning district, contingent upon compliance with the building inspector/zoning officer's staff report dated October 30th, 2024.
Second.
Any discussion?
I'm just saying because the objector withdrew his objection to motion 4, and I've already heard from the Planning Commission that they recommended approval, that's why I'm going to vote yes for this.
Any other discussion points? All those for?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion number 4 carries. Motion number 5.
Mr. Yunker, can we still ask questions at this point?
Well, we haven't officially closed the public hearing. We're still on the record, so yes, we could.
Mr. Marcinelli, I just wanted clarification. What do you plan to do with the existing shed barn? I know you addressed it at the planning commission, but it's been brought up tonight.
The lower level is going to have all my lawn gear, and I'm going to have tools, and it's just going to be it's just going to be a work shed.
I'm sorry, the one that exists now.
I'm sorry.
Are you talking about the one that exists now or the new one?
The new one. The new one's going to be a shed with tools, and the one that exists now, it's a garage. I have a collector car, in it.
Okay, and you're gonna probably at some point.
Very quickly after, I have to put this building up in order to move all my tools in there, and then I plan to do the same thing with this shortly after that. It's not going to, I mean, that's part of the reason why I'm building this building is because my wife and I made a decision instead of trying to put money into this. It's old, it's wooden, and I want the building to match the home, which is block stone and hardy board. So it doesn't match. So we just decided to invest in a new construction, do a lift in place, all the tools and stuff in there, and then this will be a garage.
Great, thank you.
And it's going to look the same. Thanks.
Okay, hearing that, I'll move to approve conditional use application CU 2410-04 submitted by Matthew Marcinelli for conditional use approval to allow an accessory use structure with over 1,000 square feet of gross floor area to be constructed at the property located at 2340 McAleer Road in the R2 zoning district, contingent upon compliance with the building inspector / zoning officer staff report dated October 30th, 2024.
Any discussion? All is for?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion number 5 carries.
Thank you. We will issue a letter tomorrow or by Friday with copies of the staff report dated October 30th, 2024 with the conditions of approval. Any appeals are to be done within 30 days of that letter, and we will also follow that up with findings of facts and conclusions of law within the next 45 days. So we will close the public hearing and give Sherry a break. Thank you all for your participation, and we'll move on to the next item on the agenda.
Motion number 6.
Move to authorize the full release of cash bond in the current amount of $4 million, I'm sorry.
Tom.
I'm sorry, I checked the wrong one off. I apologize. Move to approve the assignment and assumption agreement among RRG Franklin Park LLC, DBA Red Rocks Group as a signer, Laterra Holdings LLC as a signee, and the Borough of Franklin Park in a form acceptable to the Borough Solicitor, committing the assignee to develop the Cardinal Ridge Townhouse Plan located at 2570 Alden Drive in the M2 and R2 zoning districts in accordance with the approval and conditions listed in Resolution Number 1323-2023 on March 15th, 2023.
Second.
Any discussion? All is for?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion 6 carries.
Move to authorize the full release of the cash bond in the current amount of $4,525 being held for the Orchard Hill Church and Pavilion in accordance with the letter from Lennon Smith and Solid Engineer, Inc., dated October 29th, 2024.
Second.
Any discussion? All is for?
Aye.
Against? Opposed? Motion carries.
Move council accept a proposal from Wet Go Pro Car Wash to provide unlimited car wash services for 16 borough-owned vehicles at a cost of $5 per vehicle per month for a total of $960 for the year 2025.
Second.
Any discussion? All is for?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries.
Move to award the following 2024 fall commodities bid as submitted to the Shaycog Purchasing Alliance for its bid opening on October 3rd, 2024. snow plow blades to Come Mountain Supply Corp. of Elmira, New York.
Any discussion? All is for?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries.
Move the cash bond in the amount of $400,231.70 being held for the Deerfield Estates Plan of Lots Number 2A be reduced by $241,257, leaving a balance of $158,974.70 in accordance with the letter from Lennon Smith Solar Ray Engineering Incorporated dated October 31st, 2024.
Second.
Any discussion? All is for?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries.
Move to end into a first addendum to development agreement with Deerfield State FP Development LLC for development and construction of Deerfield State Plan of Lot Number 2A to replace the cash bond with subdivision bond.
Second.
Any discussion? All is for?
Aye.
Against? Abstained? Motion carries.
Move to authorize the purchase of gasoline and diesel fuel from Glassmere Fuel Service, Inc. of Curtisville, Pennsylvania, 15032, under state contract number 4400012477, under parent contract number 4400011997, at prices based on OPIS plus the fixed margin prices noted in the letter from Glassmere dated October 30th, 2024.
Any discussion? All is for?
Aye.
Against? Abstained? Motion carries. Mr. Yunker, would you summarize resolution number 1372-2024?
Certainly, this is resolution, nope, sorry. Certainly, this is resolution number 1372 of 2024. It is a resolution of the Borough of Franklin Park, Allegheny County, Pennsylvania, authorizing the condemnation by eminent domain of the fee simple interests in two parcels of real estate identified as Allegheny County block and lot numbers 821H2222 and 822E158, now or formerly owned by Greg S. Pertati and Candace L. Pertati, close enough, or the purchase thereof in lieu of condemnation. Pertati?
Okay. Motion number 13.
Move to adopt resolution number 1372-2024, authorizing the condemnation by eminent domain of the fee simple interest in two parcels of real estate identified as Allegheny County block and lot numbers 821-H222 and 822-E158, now or formerly owned by Craig S. Pretorati and Candace L. Pretorati, or the purchase thereof in lieu of condemnation.
Any discussion? All is for?
Aye.
Against? Abstained? Motion carries. Mr. Yunker, would you summarize resolution number 1373-2024?
Yes, this is resolution number 1373 of 2024. Is a resolution of the Borough of Franklin Park, Allegheny County, Pennsylvania, the municipality, authorizing the participation of the municipality in the Redevelopment Authority of Allegheny County's vacant property recovery program subject to certain requirements.
Move to adopt the resolution number 1373-2024, authorize participation in the redevelopment authority of Allegheny County's vacant property recovery program subject to certain requirements.
Second.
Any discussion?
Just say
Yeah,
anything that
just-
helps the.
Just one, I'm sorry.
Nope, go ahead. Schwartzmeyer?
Yeah, just to be clear on this, I understand what this is help to people that want to obtain a distressed property and bring it back to life, and I understand all that. Does it obligate us in any way, though, to the county or any other authority by participating in this program, other than on an individual parcel basis?
No.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear, because some of the programs, you create an obligation, and I want to be clear that we appreciate their assistance in helping with these blighted properties. So, I mean, it on the surface, it sounds like a good thing, and I just want to reaffirm that it in fact is.
Mr. Malkin?
I agree with Tom, that's all.
Motion number 14.
Move to adopt resolution number 1373-2024, authorizing participation in the redevelopment authority of Allegheny County's vacant property recovery program, subject to certain requirements.
Second?
Any discussion? All those for?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? Abstain? Motion carries.
Move
Move
to
to-
reject. Go ahead, Laura.
Move to reject all bids for contract number 23-MB1 rebid for the municipal building fire alarm improvements and return all bid bonds.
Second.
Any discussion? All those for?
Aye.
Against? Opposed? Motion carries.
Move Western Surety Company Site Improvement Performance Bond Number 301-72506 in the amended amount of $4,950 for Wetco Operating 3 LLC for the Wetco Pro Car Wash be reduced by $4,950 to $0 and canceled in accordance with the letter from Lennon Smith Solray Engineering, Inc., dated November 14th, 2024.
Second?
Any discussion? All is for?
Aye.
Against? Abstain? Motion carries. Mr. Yonker, would you summarize ordinance number 690-2024?
Yes, this is ordinance number 690 of 2024. It is an ordinance of the Borough of Franklin Park, Allegheny County, Pennsylvania, authorizing the incurring of non-electoral debt by the issuance of a general obligation note in the principal amount of $325,000, covenanting to pay and pledging unlimited taxing power for the payment of the note, fixing the form, maximum interest rate, maturity, redemption, and other provisions for the payment thereof, authorizing the acceptance of a proposal for the purchase of the note, authorizing a filing of required documents with the Department of Community and Economic Development, ratifying and directing certain actions of officers, and making certain other covenants and provisions in respect of the note.
Move to enact ordinance number 690-2024, increasing the indebtedness of the borough by the issue of a general obligation note in the amount of $325,000 for sundry purposes, fixing the form, number, date, interest, and maturity thereof, making a covenant for the payment of the debt service on the note, providing for the filing of the required document, providing for the appointment of a sinking fund depository for the note, and authorizing execution, sale, and delivery thereof.
Any discussion? All is for?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Mr. Yonker, would you introduce ordinance number 691-2024?
Yes, this is ordinance number 691 of 2024. It is an ordinance of the Borough of Franklin Park, Allegheny County, Pennsylvania, levying and assessing taxes for general and specific purposes for the year 2025. This will be advertised for action at a special meeting on December 4th, as well as the action on the proposed budget.
Okay, motion number 18.
Move to accept the resignation of Laura Coombs from the Planning Commission effective November 18th, 2024.
Second?
Any discussion? All is for?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? Abstain? Motion carries. Public comment time? Oh, comments. Let's see, comments going down the row. Chief, start with you. Here.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd just like to add that the yard waste site over in Blueberry Park is going to be closed from December 1st through March 1st. That's when we normally close it every year at that time. I just want to let the residents know that. There's still area for drop-off for leaf bags. They can do that all through the winter there. And that's all I have. Thank you.
No additional comments, Mr. President.
Nothing this evening, Mr. President.
Schwartzmeyer. Dr. Lee.
No comment.
Just happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Nothing further.
Nothing.
Nothing to add.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, thank you. I just want to thank Donna Platt and staff for all the work that went into our Veterans Breakfast that was held this past Saturday on November 16th. It was quite successful. And we had, I think, with the veterans and our guests, we had near 100 people. We had a wonderful breakfast, lots of commentary, good speaker. Everything went extremely well. Thanks, Donna and the staff. Thank you.
No comments.
Nothing further.
Nothing further, Mr. President.
Just want to remind the public again that we have a special voting meeting December 4th regarding the budget. Also, thank you to my fellow council colleagues for working on the budget, and Scott and Reach as well. And also happy Thanksgiving. And are there any further public comments? Andy, does anybody have their hand raised or?
I see no hands raised, Mr. President.
Sounds good. All right. So, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Move.
All right.
Second.
We are adjourned.